Forbes India, CNBC-TV18 present India Inc. on the Move. Smart Manufacturing, powered by Rockwell Automation.
Hello and welcome to India Inc. on the Move Smart Manufacturing Summit by Forbes India and CNBC-TV18 in partnership with Rockwell Automation. Organizations have been rocked by unforeseen supply chain vulnerabilities and disruptions, and multiple government organizations and private businesses have struggled with cybersecurity breaches, losing critical intellectual property due to failures in the supplier ecosystem. The lack of robust processes to identify and successfully manage growing supply chain risks have resulted in major disruptions. COVID-19 also caught many companies unaware. So how can organizations avoid major disruptions which can put global supply chains at risk and respond to immediate change? To know this and to talk about it, we are joined by Pragyan Tripathi, Logistic and Customer Care Manager, Rockwell Automation India, Mr. Deepak Subramaniam, Managing Director, Multi-Vista Global, Manish Chandra, MD and Lead Supply Chain and Operations at Accenture India, Mr. Chandan Shirbhai, AVP, Head Supply Chain, Aragon Life Sciences. I am Reema Tendulkar from CNBC TV18. And gentlemen, a big thank you to all of you for joining us today and a warm welcome. The supply chain is the backbone of every industry. But as I said, the recent developments have forced all the companies to reimagine their supply chain. On one hand, demand expectations are changing. On the other hand, we've all faced supply chain shocks. So my first question, Mr. Deepak Subramaniam, is that, we live in a connected world. A celebrity influencer on social media can cause a spike in demand. Demand forecasts can no longer be based on historical sales, and customer expectations of delivery have also changed in terms of same-day delivery, etc. So what are we currently doing to handle the current surge in demand and managing customer expectations?
We're actually in a very, very, volatile world as far as supply chain is concerned. Multi-Vista, we're actually a B2B industrial distributor. In the last 24 months has been kind of a chaotic scenario for us. Initially we had the COVID situation, and then we have the international wars going on, countries going down. Supply chain disruptions are pretty prominent across our supply chains. And as a B2B distributor, we have a serious challenge where all our customer demand can't be met through inventory. In a B2C environment, maybe if you're selling a shoe or a food item, you could actually categorize your products and you could say this is on demand and you could hike the demand up. But in a B2B environment, there's a huge impact of the bullwhip effect, and we don't see too much of customer demand until we actually finalize our orders from our customers. And a bulk of these orders are custom-made products. There are slow demand items which are slow movers in our SKU levels. So we can't inventorize them as well. So the last 24 months has been quite a chaos for us as far as meeting customer surge and demand. And in the midst of all these changes, our customer buying patterns are also changing, as you were saying. Some of our Indian customers are now servicing global projects. Global OEMs are now moving into India and partnering with Indian companies to manufacture locally with our Make in India manufacturing programs. So there's been so much changes in the way in which our customer demands have also been unpredictable in the last 24 months. So there are some things, at least at the company level, we've been trying to do. We can't manage the entire world and all that supply chain chaos that's around us. So at a company level, we're looking at capturing our customer want dates very critically. This is a special team that's been put together that is managing every single order to execution. Earlier, we used to have only a request for port department, and then there was a supply chain team handling logistics. Now, in the last 12 months or so, we have a separate team that's been put together that manages every single order we log in at the company, manages customer expectations. There's a huge amount of communication that's happening between the customer and us. And it's not just customer demand at times. A lot of times, many of our customers are OEMs or EPC companies where their projects also get delayed. So we also get pushback from the client saying they don't need product and that product can be serviced to another customer. So we had to put this team together, and it's kind of helping us. We've increased our inventory exposures. We've taken a lot more calculated risks with our forecast. We're planning for more inventory. On one side, yes, that's in plan, but then our manufacturers are not able to supply us product as well. So that remains as order in the pipeline. It's actually not hit our shelves, before which the demand is actually picking up. And a lot of sensitization As far as sales teams are concerned, we're trying to tell our sales people on the field saying that we need to set customer expectations right when we pick up our orders. And we're educating a lot of our customers in terms of how long it's going to take them to bring product into their shelves. Customers who are used to days and weeks of lead time from our side are now waiting for months for product. So this is a very, very important challenge that we're trying to do at this point of time. I don't think we've perfected it, but we've taken calculated and good steps that is actually starting to show some gains for us at the moment.
Pragyan, Deepak called it supply chain chaos, and that's true, right? Supply chains were not geared up for same day deliveries, demand spikes as we are seeing right now. And there are steps companies are taking. He spoke about how sales teams have been beefed up, sensitized, inventory management has taken on a whole new meaning. Can you talk about how companies, in your experience, are handling this current surge in demand and evolving and changing customer expectations?
Well, we have had significant increase in order intake like every other organization. Throughout the pandemic, we have seen challenges across our supply chain from component shortages to freight congestion at ports, inflation to labor, China lockdown, inflation, etc., etc. Today, the largest challenge remains electronic chip shortages given the makeup of our products. We have record backlog and working aggressively to reduce impact to Rockwell and our customers. From source or component perspective, we definitely are seeing improved supplies, but outliers with long lead times in the electronic space continue to create challenges for us and our customers. We continue to invest heavily to mitigate our risks. Our goal throughout the pandemic has been to provide transparency to our channel partners and customers. We have updated our supply chain microsite on our website with information related to supply chain to ensure our customers have relevant information around our actions. We continue to arm our internal teams with supply chain intelligence, market intelligence, and Rockwell actions to ensure that we are sharing openly and transparently with customers as we make visits and talk through the current dynamics. We have been publishing updated lead times every 2 weeks with complete visibility into true order fulfillment time. This has given our customers a direct look at the impact and supply has on their respective orders. We believe this transparency will continue to build trust and loyalty for our customers.
Manish, just to continue with that point that Pragyan was making, why do you think there is an urgency to rethink and transform global supply chain models for better resilience and risk management?
If you see, 94% of the companies were impacted from a supply chain perspective by COVID. And while we were recovering from COVID, the Russia-Ukraine war has really added fuel to fire. In fact, our study indicates that from a Eurozone itself, the impact of the war on supply chain could be as much as 2 to 7% of the Eurozone GDP, adding up to as much as 920 billion euros. While most people think that the war is largely focused around the European region, but surprisingly so, the impact is even higher in US and quite significant in Asia Pacific and LATAM. Just to give you an example, India, China, and Brazil, just these three geographies, they're close to 1,000 suppliers, 1,000 companies which are getting deliveries from suppliers from Russia or Ukraine. And if you move to tier 2 or tier 3, the impact is as much as about 85,000 companies. So the impact on the war on supply chain is very, very significant, and it's really a worldwide impact. So keeping in view that, what companies need to do is really look at supply chain resilience as one of their top priorities. And that would mean really creating what I call as supply chain visibility, right? And visibility, once you have the visibility, and then you have this supported by analytics, that's where you can execute and create a resilient supply chain. What Accenture did was that we tied up with MIT to create what we call as a supply chain resilience stress test, right? This stress test basically, really helps build a digital twin of the supply chain for a particular organization and identifies where is the weakest link in supply chain, right? What are the issues which the company is going to face in case if a disruption happens or any challenge comes in. So it's actions like these which have to be taken to see that we are able to create a resilient supply chain and really be future ready to manage such ongoing disruptions.
And it's not just thousand suppliers or vendors which got impacted, which do cater to India, Brazil, and China. It's also gas prices, right? Transportation cost has also ballooned with crude prices where they are, and gas prices seeing at astronomical levels in Europe. Thanks to the war. So that's also another logistical battle companies have to deal with. But Chandan, same question to you, right? Manish spoke about a supply chain resilience stress test. Can you talk about how you can transform a global supply chain to bring in better resiliency, agility, and also manage risk at the same time?
Yeah, hi, Rima. Thanks. As Manish did speak about, risk is now multifold and you cannot anticipate it. What we had the visibilities earlier, there have been a lot of black swan events since pandemic, of the war situation, geographical challenges, etc. We at Aragen are also into a B2B business, and that makes it very difficult because the agility or speed becomes a very crucial factor. But what I would like to mention here is that supply chains have to start considering risk also as a decisive factor when they do their conventional vendor assessment. Traditionally, vendor assessment has been done using the three main elements of cost, delivery, quality. I think risk is going to take a prominent place. Most of the supply chains have started doing it, and whoever have not done, I think they will have to gradually adopt these practices. The key to become more resilient or more agile is going to be the technology adaptation, and that too, which can take you much deeper into your supply chains. Supply chain layer does not end with your tier one, tier two. If somebody is really want to get into a deeper level of supply chain, they can end up at tier 7, tier 8, and globally you can reach to any levels. So technology adoption is going to be very, very crucial, not only in your back-end operations, or as we call it as upstream operations, how you can adopt them towards your downstream operations, how you can sense the pulses of your customers much faster than what you have been doing traditionally. And at the same time, how you can engage your suppliers. Say today, I have a tier 3 supplier based out of, say, some part of China, and he is going to face some issues. We keep hearing about energy issues, lockdown issues at various parts of the world. So tomorrow, if he has issue, how fast he can communicate that to me, at what stage he is. Can I move, say, he has got all the raw materials. Can I move that raw materials to some other manufacturer and in turn mitigate the delay or the quality issue which I am going to face? So technology adoption is going to be very, very key, how we can adopt resilience and agility into our operations.
Manish, we've been talking about bringing in supply chain resiliency, but all that costs money, and we're living in an age or in a period where inflation is running very high. So, how can companies achieve supply chain resiliency, where you can do a stress test, identify your weak links, and rectify it, and achieve cost optimization simultaneously?
Because of the war and the disruption we are seeing, there has been a significant impact in terms of, for example, ocean freight, which has gone up by as much as 3x to 5x. There was a significant, impact in terms of oil and the diesel prices as well. Now, in such an environment, companies need to look at cost in addition to resilience. While looking at cost, they need to look at cost from a zero-based perspective. Really, what should be our costs in this scenario? Look at all opportunities in terms of price, consumption, specification, and even leveraging digital and IoT for optimizing the total costs across the supply chain. From a resilience perspective, in parallel, as you save significant cost, you reinvest these savings to create a future-ready supply chain. And future-ready supply chain will mean structural aspects where you build a digital twin, you do a stress test of your supply chain, identify the weak links, and strengthen them. But in addition, I would say create dynamic visibility. Now, dynamic visibility basically means coming up with alerts in advance of what is likely to go wrong or what is the likely disruption which is going to happen. And that's why I don't call this as, building what we call as a control tower, which leverages both internal data and external data to create this supply chain visibility, to bring out something like KPIs of how the supply chain is performing, but also KPPs or key performance predictors, or what is likely to go wrong in a dynamic manner, so that specific actions can be taken from a resilience perspective, as well as to manage the increasing complexity which is going to happen in the supply chain as Indian companies expand globally.
Pragyan, my next question is, can you talk about the role of emerging technologies? Now, Manish has been telling us what the future supply chain should look like, right? And that will help companies, effectively manage the supply chain disruptions. So the key strategies as well as the role of emerging technologies. Deepak, looking ahead, what are the imperatives for a robust supply chain model?
One, we have to believe that supply chain as a terminology does not apply to large tier one corporations. We used to think that it applies to maybe a large automotive company, that has tier five, tier six levels of supply chain sourcing and procuring parts. But actually, today supply chain is going to become a very integral part of even small organizations. Today the pandemic has pivoted many small companies to move purely online, and they've started doing deliveries through bike mechanisms, courier mechanisms, and whatnot. So all of these companies and the entire mid section of SMEs, as you call it in India, needs to start getting this as an expertise within the organization. So that is very imperative in my parlance, that most of the mid-sized organizations have to elevate themselves to thinking that supply chain does not apply to just the large entities anymore, and they need to have specialists within the company. And these specialists cannot work in independent silos anymore. They cannot talk themselves to be, I'm a supply chain expert and I will do my job on myself. They will have to bring in the finance person, they will have to bring in the sales heads, they will have to bring in the management team. And supply chain cannot be an independent operation even in SMEs any longer. They need to build resilience. They will have to look at alternative solutions to vendors. At some point of time, what was believed to be strengths in supply chain is actually becoming weaknesses. 10 years ago, many companies would have, beat a drum saying that most of our products are coming from China and they're the lowest cost supplier to me. Quality is fine. But then the pandemic has just stripped all of that apart and, proved to that, if you have a single country that has your entire supply base can go, completely wrong with all these wars and geopolitical crises that are going around us. And the other very important ingredient is obviously technology. You need to bring in enough and more technology, whether it's data, whether it's analytics, whether it's drone deliveries. All of this has to bind into the way in which supply chain models have to be built for the future.
Pragya, so that brings me to my next question. Can you talk a bit about the compliance processes and governance models?
So, as I shared before, supply chain dynamics are different today than they were a handful of years ago. We strongly believe that agility and resilience are redefining supply chain maturity. Past precedent did not justify this level of contingency planning, but it's clear today that we have no choice but to look at risk management. It's also clear that integrated end to end supply chain thinking and capability are critical. The days of working within supply chain silos are gone. Managing the intersects across planning, sourcing, manufacturing, and delivery remain critical to success. We firmly believe business strategies must include supply chain agility and resilience planning. This requires us to build talent that can manage the complexities that exist today and think through the multiple scenarios. At the same time, you must be willing to invest in digital transformation to enable consistency and governance of this work. The last thing I will say is that we must continue to look from an outside in lens. We must stay close to our customers and simplify their experience. This again will change the way you manage outcomes within your business.
Manish, just one final question as we wrap up this discussion. What does the road ahead look like for supply chain transformation. We've taken a lot of steps from here on. The journey has still just begun.
In my view, the vision of a future ready supply chain is something which is customer centric. By customer centric, I mean it can't be one size fits all for all kinds of customer. It has to be a segmented supply chain where we are focused on a segment of one, and we are really, meeting the requirements of every specific customer segment separately. It has to be resilient. We talked a lot about resilience. It can manage disruptions, flex with disruptions. So it has to be customer centric. It has to be resilient. It has to be responsible. By I'm saying responsible, while it's important to optimize cost and create a resilient supply chain, but we also need to see that we are minimizing the emissions and we are doing good for the world as a whole. So a good supply chain is customer centric, resilient, should I say responsible, and all this requires the supply chain to be intelligent. By intelligent, I mean it has to leverage technology and data to be able to provide that insights. Now, all this transformation requires us to bring supply chain strategy, supply chain processes, technology, and people capability together to achieve this future-ready supply chain. From a technology perspective, basically it means three kinds of systems. It means something like an ERP, which is a system of record. It means, having a supply chain planning platform, which is a system of intelligence. And finally, a supply chain control tower, which I call a system of control. All these three needs to be integrated to achieve the vision of an intelligent, future-ready supply chain. Now, as my fellow panelists mentioned, just looking at technology and process is not enough. We would need to look at people capability. We need to see that we build the digital and analytics fluency in the organization so that they are ready to adopt to this new way of working. So while we achieve this whole objective of creating a future-ready supply chain, as I mentioned, we can't forget the cost angle. And therefore, we need to look at cost from a zero-based perspective, look at all opportunities of price, consumption, specifications, network, and analytics to really achieve the should cost in every specific business scenario. And therefore, balancing cost and resilience and really optimizing it as a whole.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a pleasurable conversation. Thank you for your insights time.
Forbes India, CNBC-TV18 present India Inc. on the Move. Smart Manufacturing, powered by Rockwell Automation.